Hello, everybody, and welcome to Edinburgh Celebrity Call Centre. It's nice to see you all here today, and I'm sorry, I'm slightly distracted. I was just talking to Hilary Rosen about HRT and the menopause a second ago. We're so glamorous. Now, a few weeks ago, I had the unique opportunity to become a call centre operative, along with some of my esteemed colleagues in television, including Channel 5 commissioning editor Dan Lowe, CBBC commissioning editor Kes Margery, Curve Media MD Camilla Lewis, Goldwalla MD Faraz Osman, and the legend that is Christopher Biggins. He was amazing. We asked TV freelancers from across the UK to ring in with very honest and open questions and comments about the issues that they're facing currently in our industry. Now, we were amazed, frankly, with the questions that were coming through. We covered some really, really serious topics like sexual harassment in the workplace and mental health, which I still can't believe is an issue, that we're still talking about this. We discussed it in Edinburgh last year, and here we are talking about it again. But we also had some lighter questions like how to deal with really annoying presenters. To discuss the answers, I'm delighted to be joined by Fatima Solaria, Head of Specialist Factual, Channel 4, Hilary Rosen, Deputy Head of Commissioning, UK TV, Sam Barcroft, MD of Barcroft Studios, and of course, the writer and broadcaster, Grace Dent. Hello, thank you so much for being on the panel today. Now, as always, we do ask audiences to please, if you have any questions at all, please submit them via the festival app, because I will be coming to you throughout this discussion. But first of all, let's dive straight in to our first VT from Celebrity Call Centre.
Welcome to a special Edinburgh TV Festival edition of the Celebrity Call Centre. Here to give advice to members of the TV industry are indie bosses Camilla Lewis and Faraz Osman, TV stars Anna Richardson and Christopher Biggins, and commissioning editors Kes Margery and Dan Lowe.
Hello and welcome to Celebrity Call Centre. Are you working in television and are you depressed?
I've got a question about toxic femininity.
Bad ideas and the new good ideas.
Yeah. And everybody slept with everybody. And there was kind of like boy on boy, boy on girl. You know, some had been gay before, some weren't gay. They came out that day.
This is outrageous. I love it.
I feel like I've walked into my family WhatsApp conversation.
There's a terrible story. She went down on him for 4.5 hours and he didn't get erect.
Oh my God. She deserves a fucking Oscar for that.
Oh, hello.
So I'm a researcher at the BBC, and I ended up walking in on a couple of cast members at it.
Was it anybody famous that you called in on?
You know what? It was somebody famous, but it's not somebody that you'd want to see naked.
I just find most presenters I work with like complete nightmares.
Can I just ask, Sam, why are they a nightmare? What is it specifically about them that is badly behaved?
I just feel they don't listen. They think they know more than, the directors and the producers. They think they run the show. I'd call most of them show ponies. They think the public love them,
Okay. Now, this is where it gets very difficult, because I've worked on both sides of the camera. I used to be that series producer where I'd be like, oh, for God's sake, fucking presenter's going to turn up in a BMW. She wants her coffee, and then all she does is a bit of script and fucks off. I used to be that person. Are you able to see the job that they do and have some admiration or some appreciation of the job, or do you just see them as spoiled?
I just see them as monsters.
Do you? I've worked with horrific people in front of the camera and behind the camera. And I think there still is that culture of treating presenters like they're show ponies and that they're a bit dim. And that drives me insane. Thank you so much for your call, by the way. And I hope that I get to work with you and that I'm not horrible. People think that being a presenter is really easy. It isn't.
Hello, welcome to Celebrity Call Centre. How can I help?
I'm sick of either being hired or other people on the production assuming that I've been hired to meet diversity guidelines. I mean, I'm damn good at my job, so I just want to know how I should react.
Yeah, it's frustrating to say the least. Due to the pressure that's going on in the industry right now, production companies have to hire certain people behind the camera to make sure that the makeup of their team is as diverse as possible. Now, in isolation, that feels like quite a positive thing because it's giving people opportunities and it's making people get jobs where they wouldn't normally get those jobs. But on the flip side of that as well, you do get a sense, and I've had this as well, you do get a sense that you're being hired not because you're good at your job, you're being hired because there's a form that needs a box ticked. I'm a kind of diverse person, and it's like, you know, how many diverse commissions do I have to take before I get taken seriously as a standard television production company that can just make good work? You know, there's this thing that is said to all of us from other backgrounds, which is you will have to do twice the amount of work to get half the amount of credit.
You know, when I haven't been available, people have actually asked me, do I know any other BAMEs that could do the job?
Are they making you feel uncomfortable? Is that how you would phrase it?
If I've got the offer of two different jobs, then it would definitely make me take the one that didn't make me feel like they were box ticking. The facts are there. They're laid bare, and you know, we continue to have a crisis in this industry, and it could be from a working class background, or it can be from a BAME background, or a disabled background, or a gender background. This industry was born on white male privilege.
Very, very interesting. Could you just raise your hands? I mean, that is clearly one opinion. Can you raise your hands if you think that this industry is still based on white male privilege? Bloody hell. Wow. OK, so that's most of the audience. Now, Fatima, I'm going to come obviously straight to you first of all. I think what's obviously, rather than Sam.
Let's just call it out. It's fine. Go on.
I'm going to come straight to you. And obviously, I'll tell you for why. Because not only did you not go to Oxford, you didn't even go to university. No. You're not white, you're not male, and yet here you are, a very successful woman working in television. Has anything changed?
I think things have changed. I'm not going to say nothing has changed because obviously I would still be a PD, a jobbing PD, if things hadn't changed to the sense that they were thinking.
So?
Yeah, absolutely. I would never have got through the commissioning doors if I hadn't gone on the trainee scheme. And I've said this several times whenever people talk to me about it, that I would never have become a commissioner if there wasn't a training scheme. People did not see me like that. People didn't see people like me like that. I would never have got through those doors. I think we've done a lot of work to kind of get to that stage. I think there's a massive, massive amount of work that we still have to do. But the point is, Anna, nothing is ever going to change in this industry until you get a BAME controller of BBC One, BBC Two, or Channel 4 or Channel 5. Patrick and Charlotte and Ian, I have a huge amount of respect for them, and I have a huge amount of respect for all the other senior colleagues that believe diversity is really, really important. But unfortunately, their history and their stories are not the stories that I want to be told. And they're not the stories, and the way that they look at stories and the way that they look at issues that are really important to me and to my community and to other people around me. You're never, ever going to understand that. So the way I would look at scheduling or the way I would look at programming and what's important to me is going to be very different from the way a Charlotte or an Ian Katz would look at stuff. Nothing will change until you get people at the top. Nothing's going to change.
So why don't we have any BAME controllers?
I think people still see people like me as a risk, and it's one of the most offensive terms that I have in the last 2 years basically said to people, stopped calling me a risk. You are not taking a fucking risk on me. I have been a producer-director. I have worked with really difficult people. I have made really difficult programmes, yet I am a risk because of who I am.
So Fatima, are you seriously saying to me that somebody has said to you, you're a risk, you're too much of a risk to be
Yeah,
at
several
the very
times,
top?
because I don't come from their worlds, Anna. I don't come from those cliques that people have. I don't socialise in those worlds. I don't go out for fucking drinks in the evening. I don't go and socialise. I have a family that I care for and that I love. But culturally, do you know what? I'm not a practising Muslim. I am a cultural Muslim. I go for a drink. I do all of that kind of stuff. But I'd much rather go for a cup of tea in the afternoon because I want to get home to my kids and I want to get home to a husband who I love. That's what I want to do. I don't want to be going out and, you know, having a nice time. I used to do it later on. Hillary can testify for this. I used to do it when I was younger, but I don't want to do it now. And I am missing out on those essential conversations where jobs are given out, where deals are done, where people are advanced. I am missing out on that world because I'm not part of it. But when I go back to the risk thing, is that, yeah, park the risk thing, guys. All I need is I need a bit of support and I need a bit of nurturing and I need a bit of you guys and I need the experience that these people have to basically say, this is how you do things. So when you do fuck up, Fatima, and I have many times, people are not going to sack me. They're going to say, do you know what? That's fine. Because Simon did that and Araminta did that and it was absolutely fine, but we kept them on and we continued supporting them and we're going to do the same for you. That's how you're going to get change.
I could make this the entire Fatima panel, but I am going to just move on very, very quickly.
Thank you.
To Grace. I mean, you are a woman.
I am a woman.
And fuck me, you're a northerner. You're a northerner. So have you seen things change at all in the last few years?
I think that things have changed. They feel like they've changed incredibly, even just in the last 5 years. It feels as if about 5 or 6 years ago, I used to go to the BBC iPlayer, the radio. I listened to a lot of the radio app. And I used to kind of go through and it was just a sea. Everything was a white man. Everything was made by a white man. I have nothing against white men. I do love white men. I've married one. But, you know, I did always feel like I was kind of, you know, banging on a door that I was never going to get in. It was interesting what, I can't remember the man's name, he said about when you get a job and you realise they are ticking a box. Do you know what I mean? And I get that. And it's obviously it's a different type of thing, but when I get that, and I learned, you know, years ago, I thought just ride it. Just ride it. If they are going to let me have a foot in the door because they need a northern woman, I am going to get my foot in the door, and I don't care what anybody on that set says. I do not care, right? Because to say that. For me, to say that tokenism or whatever isn't fair is to say that what we were doing before was fair.
Yeah.
And that wasn't fair. You know, the way they were crewing up things from, you know, I'm not just picking on the BBC, but I made an amazing set of documentaries for the BBC called The Frequency of Laughter, which was about the history of comedy from 1950 to now. And we did it episode by episode, chronologically. And I did not interview anybody that wasn't a man,
really?
a white man, for about the first 10 weeks. There wasn't any, and I used to sit down with all these amazing kind of the great and good of BBC controllers of the past, and they used to kind of explain to me, it just wasn't the culture, Grace. We didn't have any, but like, you know, what you need to understand, Grace, is, I don't want to say who said this, but what you need to understand, Grace, is there weren't any women, you know, and there weren't any working class people. We didn't know any. There just wasn't any, apart from the secretaries, and they were a great laugh, you know. So, you know, and it was, if you look at it like that, you know, it was only when I got to the part when I was writing about goodness gracious me and things like that, that suddenly I got to speak to anyone that wasn't white, you know. So what I would say is, if you're going into a job and you think that they've got you in because they've ticked the box, just bloody go in and kick the door down and do it, and just do it, and you're soon part of the furniture. The first time I sat down on MasterChef, and I think it was the first time they'd had a woman, you know, who was from comprehensive school, and everybody afterwards, you know, you got thousands of tweets just going like who, I'm going to swear you did, who the fuck are you? You know nothing about food. Like there's no way you can reply to that. You've just got to keep putting your face in and doing it.
Well, I'm very conscious that we do have a white middle-class male.
Who's very lovely.
Who's a very lovely man.
Lovely man.
On the panel. How do you ensure those things? Because you're now MD, running your own company. How do you ensure that you're not just box ticking at Barcroft? What do you do to promote diversity? Or do you?
I don't have a form with any boxes on it. So yeah, it depends. I grew up in Hackney when it was a shithole, and it was quite poor. Yeah, no soy lattes back in the day, and so I grew up somewhere where I did not notice when I was a kid that it was just like a Benetton advert every day in my primary school and secondary school. Yeah, and so I didn't really, you know.
So you weren't aware of the white privilege?
Not really, but then obviously I've massively benefited from it because when I turn up at places, people don't assume I'm a security guard or a waitress or a whatever. So of course I get massive benefit from it and have done and will continue to. But like, we're in a society where 2 out of the last 3 prime ministers have been members of the Bullingdon Club. So like that goes down through the whole of society, right? But it doesn't mean can I just say though, that is an excuse. And at our company, we work very hard. I'm an ambassador of a local free school where 95% of the kids, their parents didn't go to university. We bring them in as a media apprenticeship. We've been doing that for 9 years. We bring lots of diverse talent into the business, lots of which ends up at BBC Three or in other places. I can give a fuck what you look like, how you sound, any of that stuff. If you're willing to get up early, work super hard, go home late and get involved and be vulnerable, then you're absolutely welcome because most young people are lazy fuckers these days. So like we pick up the right ones.
We'll be talking about that shortly. We'll be talking about that shortly.
Sorry, can I just go back to chances? Because I think that was so important. You're saying when you do go in and you are kind of something that they haven't seen before, it's giving people chances when they do mess up. And I notice the men around me, I keep my act very squeaky clean. I watch what I say on Twitter. I try not to get into trouble. I work incredibly hard and I go onto set and I don't fuck people off. I'm not a monster. I don't turn up, being like that. And then you do see the men around you and they are just given chance after chance. They only fall up. They only fall up.
They fail upwards.
They only, that I watch. So it's just kind of allowing us to have our chances to mess up and not just kind of remove us from the building.
I'm going to obviously bring Hilary in as well because, as the deputy head of UK TV,
commissioning.
Of UK TV commissioning, how do you promote diversity on and off screen across UK TV?
I think all broadcasters are getting much more savvy about this. So I think, I'm not going to speak on behalf of Fatima and Channel 4 or BBC, where she used to work, where I've worked, but I think all broadcasters are thinking a lot about this at the moment.
But is it just box ticking?
Well, okay, that's quite an interesting thing to say, isn't it? Because we've just heard from Grace and Fatima, who both feel that they were in a box, that they were part of the tick in a box, and I think take your advantage wherever it comes from. So, is it just box ticking? It might be just box ticking, and if the policies aren't working, then it is just box ticking. But if a scheme like the one that Fatima is on, and it's very regrettable that scheme has to exist, but if that scheme does exist, and it means that brilliant people like Fatima, who I've worked with for years and known forever, get the opportunity to become a commissioner, then that's got to be better than that scheme not existing. In an ideal world, what we're all working towards is a world where we don't need that scheme.
Yeah.
And we won't need that scheme with people like Fatima in positions of power. That's the point, because it's not just about hiring in your image. It's about understanding that there's a
voice.
A big universe out there, and we as broadcasters, we are responsible. Broadcasting is speaking to the nation, and if the people who are making TV and making those decisions don't reflect the public, then frankly we're doomed. And I think I think all broadcasters understand that now. The route to achieving that is slightly different in all places. I mean, at UK TV, Richard, who runs the commissioning team, big boss, he's set up a scheme called All Voices. It's a scheme, it's an access scheme, it's a scheme that's looking at diversity in all its many manifestations, whether it's class, whether it's age, whether it's disability, colour of skin, women returning to work. There are many different types of people who feel they don't have access to our industry. And we are working with our production companies, and we are giving people, we're arranging, along with Film London Equal Access Network, 12-month placements within production companies. So that's a really meaningful time.
That is,
of work.
I know that.
And at the end of 12 months, You are there not as that person who's had access. You are there as a worker. You've done the job. You've either done it incredibly well, mediocrely or badly, and you will thrive or not as a result of your ability, which is just the same as the scheme that Fatima was on.
I'm going to move on, and just to reiterate again, if you have questions, please do submit them via the festival app, because I will be coming to you. But in the meantime, let's go straight into our next Celebrity Call Centre VT.
Back at the call centre, our all-star agony aunts are discussing Love Island.
But you know that really, the Jeremy Kyle, they used him because they should have got rid of Love Island.
Yes, no, I think that's absolutely right. No,
Thank you, Christopher Biggins.
Of course, but it's too much of a moneymaker. And they don't care. That was working class television for working class people.
Absolutely.
It wasn't sneery middle classes looking at it.
But you see, the trouble is, it is the only thing that ITV are making money. At the height of my television career, when we were doing things like Surprise, Surprise with Cilla Black, television was fantastic. Television was vibrant, television was funny, television was good fun, and they threw everything at it, including money. Now, we are ruled by accountants who take everything away from us.
Well, oh goodness, I'm busy talking to Christopher. Hello and welcome to Celebrity Call Centre. How can I help you?
Can you have kids and work in TV is my question.
You can.
I mean, invariably being a woman in the industry and having 4 children and being relatively successful, I think I get asked a lot about being a mum.
I feel like I'm constantly juggling. When I'm on a job, I feel like the home life comes second. I'm dropping the children off at 7 to ensure I'm at work for 10 and coming home after 8. And I either feel like I'm doing a great job at work or I'm failing as a mum.
My advice to you, which is the most important kind of sort of psychological advice, is just stop beating yourself up. Start off by saying you're setting up a really good role model for your children. You need to work the hours around you, and what you need is your employers to understand that they're hiring a whole person. They're not just hiring someone who does the job really well. I mean, if you're good at what you do, there'll be a way through this very complicated, balancing act that we all have to do.
It's weird because I think men don't often get asked that question, and women always get asked that.
I do understand. It's fucking complicated.
Hello, Celebrity Call Centre.
Oh, hi. There's been lots of welcome focus on the mental health of people on screen recently. Is there enough support for programme makers?
I mean, I think yes and no would be sort of my answer to that. I think you, first and foremost, from personal experience, I think, long periods of kind of mental health provision provided by other people will only kind of get you so far. Anyone who says that they've not experienced any kind of work-based depression or anxiety induced specifically by their working environment and working in a difficult, stressful business that can feel sometimes like it can drop you like a stone in a second, where there's numerous instances of bullying, harassment, and denied opportunity. Anybody who has never experienced that or had no negative fallout from it is either very, very lucky or is lying.
Do you think that there's still a huge stigma to someone admitting they have a mental health issue to an employer for risk of being seen not up to the job? I had a brush with poor mental health and I felt completely unable to speak to an exec about it.
This is not a business that lends itself to kind of healthy living. You can really fuck yourself up doing what you think is going to kind of sustain you. I, didn't really have any support from the production company that I was working for at the time when I went through the roughest period of my life, which was 11 years ago, and yet, kind of coming out of that period, I think is the thing I'm most proud of in my life. It's hard to hear this, but it is your responsibility. It was mine when I was in this situation, and I sort of am in this situation, I always will be in this situation, but you do need to look after yourself. Your only job here is to not send yourself crazy. You have to see what help they can give you, and if they can't, and if they don't appear to care, don't fucking work for those people.
Mental health is something that I am absolutely passionate about, and I set up in response partly to working in television, my own mental health and therapy business. I want people to be absolutely honest here and on the panel today as well about their mental health. Is there anybody here that has suffered poor mental health as a result of working within television? If you put your hands up. Okay, so maybe about... Interesting. I had a breakdown about 10 years ago following a miscarriage and had to take about 3 or 4 months off work. So I think that you know, it is really important to be honest about the fact that we are facing a mental health crisis. Can I just ask, you guys put your hands up in terms of having struggled at times through working in the industry. Actually, I'm going to come to you first, Sam. What happened to you?
Well, being self-employed, I'm still self-employed just about, is tough. And I was, where are we now, 2019. I started my company in 2003. And so 16 years of running my own shop is a long time. And about 2008, 2009, it all got a bit much. I had to take myself out of circulation for a little while to get some help and sort myself out. I think that I've sadly lost close friends to suicide. I think when you're a man, we know from the statistics that men in their 40s can really struggle with mental health and can take their own lives. Suicide's a real danger, and I have to take it really seriously. And I think that I've learnt to ask for help when I need it and put people around me that can help me at those moments where I feel low.
Just out of interest, who have you asked for help? And this is a really interesting question for me, and it caused a lot of debate with the production team when we were doing this session, because Dan says it's your responsibility to get the help. And I agree, but actually I think it's a collective responsibility that if you are on a production team and you are struggling with anxiety, depression, or whatever it happens to be, I think it's also the production team's responsibility. So who did you ask for help?
Okay. My mum is a counsellor and a life coach, and she's fucking awesome. And so I've actually brought her into Channel 4 as kind of a look. When you guys internally, Channel 4, my parent company, obviously, through the Indie Growth Fund, and I actually chatted with Charlotte Black and said, look, you should bring somebody like this in. She's like 999, ambulance, all rolled into one. My mum, she used to work in casualty as a sister, and so she's been there, done it. And she's massively helpful in times of trauma and specific stress. She's brilliant at working with people to help reassure them and get them comfortable again and kind of get them back onto some kind of level footing. So she's very good at that. So I went and stayed with my mum for a week, and she slowly took me from, I can't fucking do this anymore, I can't carry on, back to, I'm looking forward to going and seeing my kids for a bit. You know, so and that's quite an important stage. That's kind of where you're very vulnerable often, is that moment, because things pass. Time moves on. Yeah. Most people recover really well from mental health incidents. We shouldn't be scared of mental health. It's just a moment most of the time. Yeah. You know, and she was brilliant at helping me through that. And at our company, from that, we offer support to anybody and everybody that wants to come forward.
Do you just send them to your mum?
Yeah, I do.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. And they know that. They know she's my mum. But she's fucking good at it. And you need to have trust. You need to have trust. And we're a family company. My wife works in the business. And having somebody we really trust, who you can just send people to, either to stay there or to or Skype or whatever, is really, really important. We've helped people with domestic abuse. We've helped people feeling deep failure. We've helped people around grief and loss. You know, this shit happens to everybody in every industry, by the way. But the NHS cover is patchy. You need to be there as a company to help your people, whoever they are, with whatever they're going through, you know.
Absolutely. Fatima, I think you also had to take some time off from the BBC, is that right?
Yeah, I spent years basically thinking that I was shit. I had that awful thing that people have termed now as impostor syndrome. And I couldn't understand how somebody like me, working class from Stoke-on-Trent, Pakistani immigrant family, never gone to university, basically sitting next to people like John Ware and Peter Taylor in Current Affairs, you know, really brutal place to kind of learn how the hell did somebody like me get in here. So I kind of carried that guilt with me for years and years and years, and it eventually came to a head when I was working on a programme which got nominated for a BAFTA, and they put through the second programme, which sadly had, it was a programme about terrorism, and I'd made the first programme with an Asian team, and they chose not to nominate that one. They chose to nominate the second one, which is fine. We won't go into that. But that was the moment when I thought, that is it. I just had a massive, complete and utter meltdown. I remember it so clearly. The kids went to school. They were little. I'd sorted them out. And I opened the fridge and I thought, I can't make a decision about what to do. I've got no idea who I am, what I'm doing in this world, what is the point of me, blah, blah, blah. And I have always, through my life, never gone to bosses for help because I've never felt they understand me or whatever. I've always had to rely on a really tight group of women. So, you know, getting divorced, being a single mum, marriages breaking down, people like Hillary, you know, were the people that I would go to, women in the group that I could do. And I still kind of feel I do the same now, that I'll go to women and I'll kind of sit with them and talk to them about it. But eventually, I totally understand what Dan says. I had to, after, you know, 5 or 6 days of not being able to get out of bed, just had to take some kind of responsibility for myself and to think I am not going to throw away everything that I have built, that I have tried to do off the back of this thing that I've got in my head. And I was really lucky that I had a really sympathetic GP who sent me for, you know, I got 5 of those counselling sessions on the NHS. I never told a single person at the BBC this is what I was doing. I thought, if I tell you what I am going through, you're never going to employ me again.
Now, I have some experience of that. So I'll definitely come to you in a second. I have experience of that as well, because whenever I have voiced, until recently actually, but previously when I've voiced that I'm struggling, I've also had that fear, and I've absolutely had pressure from work to come back. What's the matter with you? Come back. When are you available? And I agree with you that I think there's a fear of admitting to your boss or your broadcaster that I'm really, really struggling. And I don't think there's enough help out there. Hillary, you were just tapping me there. What were you going to say?
Well, what I wanted to say is I think as broadcasters, we have a real responsibility in this area. And I don't think in any of the time that I've been a commissioner, which is about 5 years, maybe in one instance have I had a sort of heads up from a producer or a production company that there are some issues within their production company in this space. And I would like to reassure everyone in the room, and I'm not going to speak for other broadcasters, but I'm going to speak for our broadcaster. If we got wind that there was someone working within a production team who was really struggling, I would really like to think that we could be incredibly helpful and useful at that point.
Do you get wind? Because I think that...
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I want to encourage people in the room to say that actually, you know, if you're working for an indie and you're massively under pressure and you're trying to deliver a show, everything about that production is focused on the delivery of that show. You know, sleep, your private life, your kids, everything else is secondary to delivering that show. I would like to remind everyone in this room, it's not open heart surgery, first of all. No one is going to die if, you know, you actually take a break and you go home, as Camilla said, and you see your kids and all that stuff. So that's the first important thing. But I think broadcasters can actually be helpful. You know, indies are, you know, often on tight budgets. They're not hugely well staffed. They're running on massive adrenaline, and we have, you know, we can be a bit more parental, I think, in that instance, and we can actually say, you know, if you come to us, we can work with your indie, we can work with your team, we can work with your production to try and help. I think you'd be amazed and astonished, and maybe even a tiny bit delighted and pleased to know that we do actually really care about the welfare of the producers, not just the contributors, you know, everybody holistically on those teams. And if I got wind that there was a really big issue on a show and someone was really struggling and it was having a really negative impact not only on them but on the show itself, we would try and step in.
But I think I think it's so hard. It is so hard. Even now, me talking about this is taking me right back to that place. And I know that this is going to take me a couple of days to get over now because I am back in that world of how I used to feel. I can just tell from my voice about how I'm feeling and all of that kind of stuff. The difference is, though, is that the more people like you and me and you talk about this, we can recognise that through people that we employ and through people that come to us. And just having that ability to say, do you know what, I can sense that there's something going on here and we need to really talk about this now.
Grace, I'm going to come.
You have to ask, though. You've got to ask that.
Or be aware as well.
I think that's absolutely plausible, and that we should be able to go to our execs. We should be able to go to our broadcasters. I still don't believe that we have sufficient resources available. I don't think there is sufficient help for freelancers. What are your survival tips, would you say, Grace?
I didn't think you were going to ask me that, but that was what I was going to say. I think that show business and mental health are not, it's a combination that is doomed to fail.
Not a heavenly mix.
It's not a great mix. I understood when I got into this game very quickly that I had to be really, really vigilant about my mental health. Really vigilant, because to be able to do what I do, I have to be, personally, I think I do have to be a little bit mentally ill. I don't mean that in a candid way. I mean to be able to get up and just like cough up 900 words about something and then run into a room and be the person that speaks, and and be judged continually and be put up for jobs and then told I'm not good enough, and then and then see somebody else has got it and be and go home by myself and all my plants are dead and I have and no one's fed my cat and no one's taken it to the vet for a hypothyroid and then I didn't get that job and then I made that sizzle and then no one looked at the sizzle and then I went to Soho House and I heard people talking about the sizzle and it goes on, it never stops. You're just running on a treadmill of anxiety, and I think the first 5 times, after about the first 5 times I went mad. I thought, right, okay, everything I'm going to say from now on, I'm just going to sound like your gran talking, right? I mean, basically, you have to be vigilant about sleep, ruthless about sleep. You have to sleep. People stand and look me in the face and say, and go oh God, I'm just so mad, I'm so mad. I need to see my therapist. I'm so mad. Then they go to the Groucho. Yeah. Nothing good's going to happen in the Groucho. Do you know what I mean? No one's like, no, you don't, do you know what I mean? I was like, no one's going to high five you at 3 o'clock when you're leaving the Groucho in the morning, Be ruthless about sleep. Be ruthless about exercise. Now, I'm not saying sign up for a marathon or Tough Mudder, but get some fresh air. Yeah. You have to make sure that you're eating properly. You have to, go and get a therapist. If you've got enough money to spend on the things.
We will come back to this. If you've got enough money to
spend on the things, the rubbish that we have to spend on in this industry, get yourself a good therapist and go every day and go every week and treat it as you would. Be as vigilant about that as you would about your weight, about your looks.
Yes. We will come back to this because this is a real passion project of mine and I am sick to death of talking about it. We discussed it last year as well. Nothing's fucking changed. And I agree with you that you should go and get a therapist, but that can be extremely expensive. But I still believe that it is every production company's and every broadcaster's responsibility to put provision in place for anybody that comes to them and say, I'm not well and I'm not coping. So we will come back. I have to move on. But
I just want to talk about this now. No.
I have to move on. Let's go straight into our third VT, please, from Celebrity Call Centre.
At the Celebrity Call Centre, it's time for some juicy celeb gossip.
Did he kill her?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he didn't.
But he got her killed?
Yeah. The family did.
So what happened to her? Was it drugs or was it just dementia?
She was just like her mother. She had drugs to wake her up and she had drugs to put her to bed.
Meanwhile, Camilla is also dishing the dirt. But due to legal reasons, we are unable to divulge any names.
I do know of a very famous person who regularly was caught getting blowjobs from runners and various different things. Can't discuss. No, I'm not. I will not. No. This is people being wankers. It's a really good story, people being wankers. So the only person who insisted on being paid to appear on a sort of tribute, he died that day, right, was
No.
And he turned up and he was so fucking rude to me. He's horrible. He's really, really rude. And he was so patronising. And not as bad as someone else who I can't say their name because it's too awful. Come on. This cannot be used, okay? I'm just making that point now. In walks I put my hand out and say, hello, nice to meet you. And he throws a coat over my arm and says, take that. And I thought, I was just standing there as the director thinking, are you fucking joking me?
I'm shocked.
Oh, hang on a minute. I've got somebody coming through. How can I help you, please, caller?
Hey, Anna. I was once working as a researcher on a documentary series following a very well-known politician round. And one of the contributors, who herself is now a well-known politician, came on to me very strongly at the office Christmas party. I didn't really know what to do. She kind of forced herself upon me. So to not blow access to the documentary, I kissed her back. But then afterwards, she kind of started to stalk me and call the office. I don't really know what I really should have done in that situation.
So let me just get this straight. You were working on a documentary, and in order to secure access to this particular politician, when you were at a party, a production party, she came on to you, you snogged her because you were frightened of losing access. Is that right?
I was kind of told, you got to do what you got to do. So I kind of took one for the team and kind of, kissed her
Are
back.
you serious? So your bosses, when you sort of said, look, I'm really worried about this woman is really coming on to me, you spoke to your bosses and they said, look, do what you've got to do. I mean, I've heard the show must go on, but this is ridiculous. I'm shocked that he felt he had to do that. I'm amazed that his bosses didn't say, this is completely unacceptable. And the reason that I'm particularly passionate about that is because when I was a junior presenter, I had an encounter with Arnold Schwarzenegger where I was groped, and I then subsequently sued him for libel because he and his team said it never happened and that I was a liar. So I feel very, very strongly that you should never be put in a position of exploitation like that. And if it happens, it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's a Hollywood superstar or a British politician, those boundaries are transgressed, it's against the law, and you should not feel that in order to make a TV show happen, that you should be exploited and bullied. It's appalling. And actually that is deeply exploitative, and I'm worried that as a junior member of the team, you felt that that's something that you had to do in order to get on in television, and that is not okay. During the interview, he groped me very, very clearly. We were in a situation very similar to this. Lots of production people, lots of cameras around, lots of witnesses, and he very, very clearly groped me. Now, that had a catastrophic effect on my career, but I will never regret it, because this is pre-#MeToo. I was that Me Too person. Please don't ever do that again.
Not at all, no. No, I wouldn't, don't worry.
Thank you, bye.
Unbelievable.
So then I was blackballed from actually going to any of the junkets. So that was really problematic, even though I'd been sexually assaulted. And it was a problem also at the time within my team and the broadcaster, because it was very much a case of, look, just, don't make trouble. And there's nothing we can do about it now. So just keep quiet about it. So I was out of work for about 2 years following that. I had to sign on. And then I was very lucky in that because I'd come from production, after a while I was able to move back into production, and I got a lucky break in development. That was my story from a few years ago, and it was catastrophic for my career. And as I say, I used to go and sign on, and people go, are you that girl from the television? I'd be like, yeah, and just pick up my dole check. It was awful. Has anybody else here experienced any kind of sexual harassment within the workplace, within television? I'm absolutely shocked by that is still going on. Grace, do you think that anything has changed in the last 10 years, or do you think that we're getting a slight sort of Me Too fatigue?
Have we got Me Too fatigue? I think that some people had Me Too fatigue right away. I think it was very uncomfortable for a lot of people. Have things changed? I think probably a little bit. But I think that show business and I think that television, I mean, lots of areas of life are like this, but is the kind of the perfect blend of really gorgeous young 20-somethings who look amazing and they have the rest of their life ahead of them and are in a position where they maybe need somewhere to stay, somewhere to live, they need money, they need, they want to get on in their job. And then kind of 40 to 50-year-old men who are, they've usually put their wife usually lives outside London somewhere in the house. And they've usually got a crash pad in London and they're just usually going through the office. Do you know what I mean? Kind of getting off with.
So you think the exploitation is?
Yeah.
Is
so I think
very
that, I think that's a dance as old as time, and I don't know how you legislate against, against young people falling for that. You know what I mean? Again and again. And I don't know how, and I mean, going back to the kind of the celebrity thing, I think that if somebody, oh God, this is an awful thing to say. I think that if somebody tried to stick their hand up my skirt on set, I still now would think like, God, what do you do, right? Because what can you do? What do you want to be? Do I want to be in the Daily Mail? Do I want people to, do I want to be on the, do I want the entire, do I want all of that unfolding on the sidebar of shame for the next 20 weeks?
Yes.
No,
really?
I don't. No, I don't. I mean, no. I don't. I think, but now at my age, I think I'd just punch them right away.
Yeah.
Because like when I was 20, I would have been like, oh, but now I would know that I would just go between the knees.
So you would now, but you wouldn't have done that.
That's a really important point. That is a really important point. I mean, when I started in TV, back in the days of black and white television, you were fair game. I mean, Dorothy talked about it in Hamlet Taggart, which why it was so resonant for so many of us, and we were all air punching at the end of it because we'd all been in that car with that reporter, with that producer on location, and you were assumed to be, researcher with benefits. It's different. You get older. That doesn't happen quite so much to most of us, but I assume for those 20-year-olds still starting out in the industry, that is still something that's happening. So it's incredibly important that we have that conversation. And I think if you are, in your 20s, starting out younger and being in any way exploited by men or potentially by women, it's not only men who, older people, it's being exploited by people in positions of power. I think you've got to use all of your social networks to call it out. I think there are other platforms and ways that people can communicate with each other and say, this happened to me, and share that information. And I think the more that people are encouraged to do that, that's just one response to these situations.
Well, I'm interested to know that Sam, you have a no-hug policy at Bar.
I don't know where this came from because,
do you?
Well, yeah, but it's kind of. I've been working on this one because I've got teenage girls, right? And if anyone wants to try any of that shit on my girls, I'm not going to be very happy about it. So how do I work that out with all the young people that work with me? So we've got 70-odd staff. We work with lots of freelancers. We've got a brilliant team of people who all get on really well. I'm so proud of them. And we work really hard to bring them into the industry and to get them on their way to changing the world for the better, right? So how do you look after those people as a hairy old man, right? So as a hairy old man, what I've realised is you don't put them in that position. Yeah, you do all you can not to make them be able to be in that position. So how do you do that? Well, architecture, simple. There's quite a lot of kind of things if you really think it out. You don't make loads of nooks and crannies that have got doors that don't have windows on them and stuff like that. So you don't create an environment where those things can happen, and when you move on from that, I'm not going to go up to loads of 21-year-olds, hi, how you doing?
Yeah.
Because what are they going to do, to your point? What are they going to do? Kick me in the fucking nuts? They're not, are they? Whether you like it or not. So
you create an environment within the office where, look, let's just not get into this situation in the first place.
Why let it happen? Or why create an environment where it's likely to happen? Now, I hope it hasn't happened at our place. I've never heard of it. But what I don't do is I don't walk up to people to give them a hug that I work with, whether I'd like to or not. not, whether they'd like to or not. If someone runs up to me and goes, hi, and gives me a hug, I'm also not going to push them out of the way, of course.
Yeah, this is it, because I find it quite sad. There's like, even though I've listened to all that, I find it a bit sad, the thought that
you can't
that then you can't. I'm going to hug you later. I can't. That we've become to that point where to stop people sexually harassing, that we can't be fond and like tender with each other, and men are too, you know, I see when I walk into places now, men kind of like going but they just don't really know what to do. And I say now, sometimes I go, hello, I'm going to hug you.
Yes.
And I say it, and then going to hug you, I don't ask for consent. I'm going to end up on this thing next year, aren't I?
Exactly. I promised that we would come to your app questions. I have got one in front of me here now. Sexual harassment is basically a form of bullying, and so this question is relevant. Do you think bullying is still rife in the industry, and can women be the worst bulliers? Fatima?
I think there are lots of systems in places now that make it easier to report bullying. It's not gone, I think, but it's a lot easier to either report sexual bullying or full-on whatever kind of bullying. I think I've worked for some really tough female bosses. I've worked for really tough male bosses. I think I would hate to kind of think one's worse than the other. I think the form of bullying can be quite different. You know, for me, it's always been about whether or not I feel I can belong to that group or I belong to another group. I think the bullying that I would have, you know, that I used to get earlier on in my career as a researcher in AP was obviously from a lot of blokes, and it was always about work, and it was all about whether or not my work was good enough or all of that kind of stuff and whatever. And then I think as you kind of gradually go up the scale, I think the bullying takes on a different kind of form of whether or not you're in that group or you're in that kind of social circle and whatever.
But do women tend to be harder on other women? Because the bullying that I've experienced in television has actually mainly been from senior women. Or sometimes my associates on the same team, but it's tended to have been women. And you're nodding there, Grace.
Yeah,
you've experienced that, haven't you?
Well, no, I think I am always more in fear of women than men. Always, and still now. I mean, I was when I was at school, I was when I was at uni, I was when I first came into the industry, and now I'm in my 40s. The biggest bane of my career day to day is often people who are women that are in their 60s, and if they are in a job that's above me, and they're still, they don't want to retire, which is fair enough because none of us can now, so we're all staying in the job longer. So and people aren't allowed, you know, they stay, they want to keep working, and then they're just angry, you know. So you find, you know, I mean, I always say this, I always go like, I'll be up for an award, and I'll go, well, I'm not getting it, because I've seen the panel who's judging it, I'm not getting that award. I'm not getting it, and I don't get it, you know. And it's fine, but it's, you know, it's really difficult to talk about this. But yeah, it's often women. But then from the sexual harassment point, if it was a load of men, I might get it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
So bring back sexual harassment.
Win. Yeah, bring sexual harassment back.
I'm just going to... I'm very aware, actually, that we're running out of time. So I was going to come to you, Sam, because you used to work in Fleet Street, and that was a very bullying
Different
culture,
culture.
wasn't it?
Well,
just
tabloids,
very quickly, just let me know. Are you a changed man?
Yes, for sure, because you can only learn from what's around you. So when you have people screaming at each other in their face and, you know, fights breaking out and watching people running out of offices crying, you can tell you don't want to do it like that. And the only good thing about running your own shop is you can set it up how you would want to. So I'd encourage everybody to try and be the better person.
So change comes from the top down, effectively.
Well, yeah, if you can, and I just also encourage people to be honest, because if you ask for help, you'll get it generally, and if you don't ask for help, no one knows. We can't mind read as your bosses, or as your parents, or as your friends, or anything you do. I would just say if you're having struggles of any of these types of things, the hardest step is just to mention it, but it's a small thing if you find someone that you can trust just to mention it.
Do you think that things have changed, like, I mean, in the last, say, because I feel like they have with maybe in the last 8 years on TV sets when people, I think that the talent know a bit more now that they can't get away with this
to some
shit.
extent, but I mean...
Especially, with social media and the way that
we work in digital mostly, and most of these things are very different in digital, certainly around representation. Lots of other bits have moved on, and I think that's great for the future.
I'm going to move on. We are running out of time. We have one more VT to get through, so please, can we play VT4 from Celebrity Call Centre?
Back at the Celebrity Call Centre, Biggins is being pitch-slapped.
So we thought that we might pitch you some TV programme ideas that you might like to sort of be interested in putting your face and your name to.
OK, Sarah, go ahead.
My first idea for you is Glove Island.
Very good.
How can I help you?
You're one of the few disabled kind of execs in the industry. Why is that? And as a fellow disabled person in a wheelchair, do you think they're scared of us?
Well, they should be scared of us, really. We cause a few too many health and safety risks, you know. If we want to go out filming, oh my God, that's an extra hazard assessment form you've got to fill in.
And I was never told you can't go anywhere. So I filmed all over the world. And I think that health and safety possibly was less then, so that people didn't hide behind that health and safety.
But do you think we actually make them feel uncomfortable as well?
Yeah, I think we do. In a way, there is a bit of a hierarchy around disability, and that it's easier. The less you need, the less different you are, the easier it is. And if I got a pound for everybody saying, oh, I soon forget that you're disabled, I'd be a very rich person.
Although there is now a bit of a tide turning, recognising that if you're going to commit to wanting to have a really diverse workforce, then you need to commit.
The more disabled people there are around, the less all of that will be an issue, because if you just hang out with people, then you know that there are more similarities than differences.
Absolutely.
Thank you for calling.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right then, bye.
Bye.
Do you have any other ideas?
I do, yes. Killing Jane. You know Jane McDonald from Cruising with Jane McDonald on
I know
Channel
her
5?
very well. I know her very well. And I'm very good at cruising too.
Well, exactly.
You know, I mean, it's something that I've done a lot of, and
I'm not surprised to hear that one little bit.
And I would like to do more.
Cruising with Biggins.
Cruising with Biggins is a very different show.
Yes.
I'm sure that's been pitched. That's been pitched.
Meanwhile, Channel 5 Commissioner Dan Lowe has got a call from BAFTA award-winning director Brian Hill.
I'm after some careers advice, really.
And that's what I'm here for. Bring it on.
Good. Well, I've been making films for a very long time now, so I'm thinking I might try and have a bit of a career change. And it seems to me that being a commissioning editor is a pretty cushy number.
Yeah, I think definitely try and become a commissioning editor. It's really fun, and it's also not really a proper job. I used to work at the Pret just by Channel 4, and all the Channel 4 commissioning editors in the late 90s used to come in. I used to make them their sandwiches. I'm a way better chicken and avocado maker than I ever was a TV producer or commissioning editor. I can make 90 chicken avocado in 12 minutes. I think commissioning is honestly too easy for you.
Well, that's very kind of you.
I started giving him actual advice. The fuck do I get off giving Brian Hill advice?
Bye.
Bye-bye.
OK, Sarah, I'm afraid I've got to go, but it's been lovely speaking to you.
We live in a golden age of television.
Cheers.
Yeah, bye.
Yeah, my God. This is amazing what we're doing.
You know, television is one big fucked up family.
What we're doing should be more fun than what other people are doing, because if it's not, kind of what's the point?
Bye-bye.
It's a really Machiavellian world, broadcasting, and it's how do you stay true to yourself and how do you remain a really good person whilst swimming with sharks?
We all need to be making sure that we're thinking about how our behaviour is to other people and also making it open for people to talk about it.
We have literally just 2 minutes left, so I'm going to ask each of you. It is a wonderful industry that we work in. It is a privilege to work in this industry. How do you survive? For the young people coming up behind us, how do you survive? Survival tips, Hilary.
I said it earlier, it's not open heart surgery. No one's going to die, we hope. Don't take it too seriously and, you know, have fun. I mean, we don't do proper jobs. If we wanted to be civil servants, we would have all gone and done that instead. So just try and enjoy it. And just try and be kind and be a bit thoughtful to other people. Sometimes it's just very small things of treating people with courtesy that makes all the difference, and that will make people's day okay. So try to be nice people.
It's true. Kindness. Sam, survival tips.
Honestly, I think the problem with young people today is they've already worked that out, Hilary, I think. Honestly, they know that they have to look after themselves better. They're the most informed people that have ever lived on the planet. They've read it all already. They know how to...
But you said lazy earlier on.
They are, because they know that it doesn't matter. You know, so this is the problem. So I'd encourage them all to try a bit harder, quite frankly. But... Just a little name check for Ethan, who's in the audience over there, who's one of our apprentices who's graduated, who's 20 and is going to be that next level of entrepreneur in this business. They are still out there. But I would say survival tip is all about the people around you. And I would encourage younger people to make sure they know who their people are, to try and expand a group of people that you trust, and to try and go on this mad, merry race together with other people. Because I think if you're part of a group of people you can trust, then all these horrible things that happen are made a little bit easier. So try and reach out and make friends.
Fatima.
Totally echoing what you guys have said. We are a family, and you have to make this surrogate family, and that is how I've survived in this world of basically having a family around me that you spend, you know, hours and hours with, and treating them with respect. Echoing exactly what Hilary says, do not be mean and nasty, because those people that you are mean and nasty to one day will be your bosses, and you will really, really regret being horrible to them. But I think I've some of my longest lasting friendships have been made in this industry, because you go through so much shit together, but you come out the other end if you support each other and you love each other and you are just nicer and kinder.
Grace.
I think there's been at least 5 times in the last 20 years where I've thought, right, that's it, it's over. It's just over. I'm just never going to get to the next level. I'm completely stuck. I've been passed over for A, B, or C, and I think I've sat on the kitchen step down in my house and just thought, that's it, I'm just going to leave London. It's never over. Do you know, it's never over. It's just, you just have to go and you know, often take it day by day. Sometimes you have the worst days, and it's just humiliating and awful. And I always say, just treat it as a day. Go to bed early. Sorry, I'm going to be really boring. Go to bed, have some toast. Go to bed early. And tomorrow is always a fresh day. It's just, you just need to go to bed and have some sleep.
Thank you. I have to do some thank yous just before you all pile out. So thank you so much to my panel, Grace, Fatima, Sam and Hilary. Thank you. Thank you to the callers who rang in. I have to thank our sponsors, All 3 Media. I promised that I would thank Charlotte in the production office for helping this very, very difficult presenter with her cue cards. So thank you. And also thank you to all of you here for attending this session. Thank you.